Hello and welcome to the Rhythm of Business podcast series. I am your host, Dr. Terry Daniels, and I am excited to have this morning with us Jimmy Freeman, the co-founder of NoBaked, located out of Nashville, Tennessee. Jimmy, welcome and thank you so much for joining us. Love to get kicked off just by you sharing with us a little bit of who you are and what you do.
Yeah, thanks for having me on, Terry. I really appreciate it. So, 7 years ago, my now wife and I embarked on this journey to start a cookie dough company. Um, Originally, Megan just wanted to quit her job and sell cookie dough at the farmers market, and that morphed into a business where I came on board. We opened up a bunch of scoop shops. We pivoted during COVID, sold a lot of cookie dough online, and today we do all sorts of stuff. We sell cookie dough online. We sell edible cookie dough in the grocery store, and we still do have scoop shops that we operate here in Nashville, where people can come in, get dessert, and we scoop cookie dough like it's ice cream. So
Oh, wow.
it's a fun business, and it's evolved over the course of the last 7 years, but it's been a really exciting experience and a journey. So, yeah.
Awesome. And so when you think about those 7 years, if I back up to that, uh, what inspired you? I know you said your wife wanted to do something different, and what inspired you to sort of take this entrepreneurial leap to come out there and say, "Hey, I'm going out on the limb. I'm gonna do." What inspired you?
Yeah, so I think that's a great question, and I think the answer is different for everybody. I've always kind of prided myself in being someone who can kind of see the positive, of where something could go. Um, I'm one of those kind of people. It's how my brain is wired. So I'm always like, wow, this could turn into, and then this. And so after I saw what Megan started, um, and specifically after this one market that we did, because she roped me in pretty early. She was like, "Hey, will you help me like make cookie dough in the kitchen? You help me like set up the pop up tent and stuff like that." And we were dating at the time, so I was kind of obligated.
Yeah,
and
absolutely, for
There
sure.
was this one market in April of 2017, 1 month after she started the business, and I watched person after person for 3 hours straight just buy cookie dough over and over and over again. And it was one of those moments, and I think it was the first time in my life where I was like, you could change the world, maybe in a small way, and maybe like selling cookie dough isn't gonna like change the world completely, but you have an impact. And that impact is really cool. Even if you're the person that's like selling some stuff at the farmer's market, or you have like a shop on Etsy, or you like doing a thing, you're changing people's lives in like a tiny
Yeah,
little way. You're actually impacting the world. And that was the moment, April of 2017, where I was like, I have to do this. I was like, this is going to be huge. In
wow.
my mind, I was like, this is where all of this can go. Like, we should open a scoop shop. And Megan, and we actually have a podcast episode where we talked about this, on our own podcast, where Megan pointed out, she was like, I just don't think I would have taken it that far. And the way that my brain works, I was like, but we have to, because you're not given those kind of opportunities like every time, every year of your life. Typically, like every year is kind of like the drudgery, and like you're
Yeah,
just kind of like making it through and surviving. And then once in a while, these opportunities come along. And I think when you see them, you should seize them. And I think in my 23-year-old brain, I was like, oh, this is perfect.
yeah,
And I was really excited about it. And I started to really love making cookie dough, and I started to really like have a passion for the business. And yeah, I mean, if you were to talk to me today, my favorite thing is food. I love cooking. I love baking. I love what we do. We manufacture all of our own products, and we also manufacture cookies for other people. And all of that is because like of a passion that was developed. So when you ask about like what made me take the leap, it was
yeah.
like I saw this thing, and then that thing spoke to me. Where
Wow.
like I knew it wouldn't be easy, but I was like, this will be fun. And then so lo and behold, it actually turned out to be like a really, really great thing. But it was never easy. And honestly, the first 18 months were easier than it never was easy again. The first 18 months were so simple and beautiful,
Yeah,
where you start a business and you're growing, and then we got the first shop open, and there was a lot of adversity, but
absolutely.
it was like an upward trajectory that then stopped being so much like this and started being a little bit more like this, once you get into it. And I
Yeah.
think that's what a lot of older people and mentors that came to me afterwards who ran businesses before were like, hey, it's not always going to be like roses and sunshine.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or like,
So
like what?
can you speak to that while you're on that topic, the ups and downs? What as an entrepreneur out there, if you can speak to them and say, what are some of those misconceptions they have about being a business owner, or can you walk through some of that as you watch your own
Yeah,
journey, you and your wife?
I think the main misconception is going into your business knowing it could be like quote unquote profitable and not understanding like the working capital requirement. That's a little bit into the weeds, but I'll explain
No,
in
that's
like
good.
so like when we first got into the scoop shops, it's a very like quick cash cycle. So you
Hmm.
like order food, you make the food, you sell the food, you get paid. That cycle takes like 4 to 5 days. Realistically, you're turning
Hmm.
inventory every like four
Yes.
days. There's not inventory. So it's like a very different kind of business. In direct to consumer, you can actually get paid before you make the product, right? So like someone can order on your website
Yeah.
and then you can make it afterwards. You could actually get money prior to doing anything.
Hmm.
Uh, in manufacturing and then like selling as a brand, what we do now because we're vertically integrated, our cash cycle is like 120 days, which is terrible.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And so I think one of the biggest misconceptions is, oh, I'll start this business, we'll be profitable, and then I'll have a bunch of money, and I'll be
Hmm.
driving around with like a Lambo or whatever.
Yeah.
And
Absolutely.
and we all come to learn eventually, depending on what your goals are and what you're going to do, whether you're going to bootstrap or you're going to raise money or you're going to get debt. There are a lot of requirements and there are a lot of obligations that come before, like, oh, I get to go like buy a really nice house or get to
Yeah.
go do a lot of cool things. I have friends that are like in professional careers that make way more money than me, like in as into cash into their bank account.
Sure.
And when you're trying to build something and you're consistently in building mode,
Hmm.
um, one of the biggest misconceptions is you'll be able to like, also live like large, but that's not true.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
the longer you're in building mode, which we've been in for like 7 years, you're constantly going to put the business first. The business
Hmm.
comes before me, it comes before my house, it comes before everything. The only thing it doesn't come before is like my kids and my family.
Yeah. Yeah.
The company takes all the resources,
Yeah.
and that's okay because that's a moment in time, and
Hmm.
one day you may come to a point where you want to exit or you want to stop growing. Because if I was to stop, like if nobody was to turn off growth and our sales stagnated and they stayed the same,
Hmm.
we would be under money because your inventory would eventually get paid off
Yeah.
and like balance sheet would just be equity and everything would be fine.
Hmm.
And so I think that is one of the biggest misconceptions is like what you're getting yourself into. There's
Yeah.
also the amount of work and the amount of hours that you work, I think are underestimated and sometimes overestimated by like people on social media, like, I grind every day.
Yeah.
I don't work all the time, but I would say I am always working. As
Yeah.
in, like, if somebody needs something or hits me up on Slack, one of our employees at the scoop shops,
Hmm.
or like our production managers at the manufacturing plant, like we run manufacturing shifts 6 days a week. Like if I'm not always here. If someone
Hmm.
asks me, I have to come. I live close.
Hmm.
Um, there's just little things like that. It's like you're always on the clock.
Yeah.
You're not always working. I take my kids to the
Yeah.
park, take them to
Yeah.
school, but you do have to commit to being in it
Yeah.
permanently until it's over. It's a lot like parenting a kid. You don't get to
Yeah.
stop being a until they're 18.
Well, I think you said that so well, and Jimmy, in that, you know, you know, I'm always working, but I'm not working hard. I'm always working, and as an entrepreneur, certainly myself as well, we're always work, and it's not laborious. It's just,
No,
it's not. It's just work. So how do you, as you think about always working, and it's enjoyable. I mean, I know when we're doing something that's very close to our passion. Um, how do you find the balance? I mean, I know people say work-life balance, or I call it life-life balance, or just balance in general. Where do you find your balance? I know, as you say, you take your kids to the park, or how you find
yeah,
that?
I'm still working on that. I don't think that I have that figured out at all. I'll tell you like what I do to attempt it this year.
Mhm.
And kind of what I've done in past years. This year, what I've attempted to do is schedule every hour of my day,
Yeah.
which is not to say like I have to do what the calendar says. Things
Mhm.
come up and like, whatever happens, happens. But I try my best to, at the beginning of the week on Sunday, put everything on my calendar from like dropping the kids off at school to like making them breakfast
Mm.
to like when I have to be in the production kitchen, when I have to go meet with people, obviously when I have to do this podcast, everything is on that calendar. Um, and I have it scheduled from like 6 a.m. when I wake up all the way until like 8:30 a.m. or p.m. when I stop working out. Like
Mm.
I schedule everything. And the reason for that is like had this realization, and I think having kids really, really made this real for me. Um, there are not that many hours in the day.
Absolutely.
And they're not that many hours in the week. And a lot of people will be like, "Oh, I work like 50 hours a week or whatever." And it's like they're technically like 120-ish waking hours in the week.
Mhm.
So then you've got like 70 left. And say you want to like, work out an hour a day. Now they have
Mhm.
63 left. And then like say you spend like another hour a day in the car driving. Now you have like 56. Like it slowly like dissipates until, if
Mhm.
you're really, really honest with yourself. And the way that I figured this out was I tracked it for a week.
Oh,
Just
wow.
on my phone. I was really curious. I was like, how I was getting like really upset with myself
Yes.
for not getting anything done. And I tracked how much I was like driving. I was like, how often am I like driving in between locations,
Yeah.
or like going to pick up my kid from school, or like driving back to the house? And then how can I like optimize this? Because this is
Yeah.
getting really weird. Um, and the crazy thing is, I don't think that's just like specific to entrepreneurship. It's also like, do you have, um, it's not just specific to entrepreneurship. It's also sort of specific to like just being a parent or an adult that's like
Mhm.
35, 40 with kids. It just kind of like you start to realize like life does not have that much time, and
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
important to try to, manage it.
Well, I think to that point, it's as I say in the podcast quite often, it's that rhythm. I mean, life has to be a rhythm with an entrepreneur, with family. How do I find it? And everyone has the same 24 hours in a day. They may have more waking hours because they get up earlier or go to bed later, but we all have the same 24 hours. And it really is just about finding that rhythm. But as you think about finding that and getting that balance, you've got this growth going on. You've got this added layer into your life now where it was you and your wife and you all were excited. Now you got this abundance of work that you've got to find yourself doing. Now you got to bring people in to be part of it. How do you manage as everything evolves in a growing entrepreneurial world in your business? How do you manage that growth as it evolves and as it includes people as well, different people that may not have felt that same passion as you were sitting watching those cookies being purchased for 3 hours?
Yeah, it's interesting. Like I think as you add people into the business, and as you add like complexity in,
Hmm.
um, it does become really hard to like manage. And no, not everyone's going to feel the same passion. Not everyone's going to be as excited about everything inside of the company. But what I have kind of started to learn is that if you hire people and you do a really good job of training them, and then like uh putting them into the culture where they enjoy doing their job every
Hmm.
day, to a point, like not everybody's gonna like working. And I'm be the first person to say like, no, I'm not like obsessed with cookie dough. Like I like what I do and I am passionate about it now. I think that's just a symptom of doing it for so long. I
Hmm.
don't think that I was passionate and then decided to do it. If that makes any
Yeah.
sense.
Yep.
I don't
Yep.
think that worked. So yeah, that was something that I try to like pass on to employees, and we're not perfect at it, but what we've been good at is being able to like promote from within. So like whenever we
Yes.
need a group shop manager typically we promote someone who's already working for us. And I found that that's really helpful because they feel at home and they feel
Mm-hmm.
comfortable.
Yeah.
Whenever we bring in people from the outside into management roles, it doesn't work out as well.
Yeah.
And a lot of the times I think that that's like a cultural thing. Like
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
don't, I'm not as familiar. I don't feel prepared to lead these people who seem to know quite a bit about what they're doing.
Yeah.
And a lot of times I've found that like my lower level employees end up coaching a manager that I've hired. And so that's one thing that we've tried to do and we've gotten really, really diligent about in the last
Mm-hmm.
3 years. Um, I would say the second thing is just making sure that you're communicating constantly with everyone at the company about like their goals and expectations.
Yeah.
So we all live on this earth with like things that we want to do. And a lot of the times nobody takes the time to ask like someone, what are your plans? And with us too, it's really important. Most of the people working for me are in college or they're right out of college. Um, I'm sure they have things they want to do, and I try to like ask them. And we don't
Mm-hmm.
have a workforce that's that big yet. It's 30 people. So if I can't communicate with 30 people and Megan can't communicate with 30 people, get to know them, work alongside them, we both try to like really be in the business as much as we can.
Yeah.
I know some people recommend not doing that. I've found it's really good for morale.
Absolutely.
I ask our employees to do a lot of absurd things. Like I ask them to do things that are well beyond their pay grade, and then they typically achieve those things. And I think it's because we take the time to like build that relationship with them.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I also don't refer like I guess the third thing I've started doing this is I wouldn't necessarily refer to like our business as like a family. Um, it's not like I will fire someone if they're bad at their
Yeah.
job, and I will also pay people really, really well if they're good at their job,
Mm-hmm.
and I feel like that feels a lot more like a sports team.
Mm-hmm.
And I would rather like use that metaphor or like continue to impart upon our employees like, hey, if you look out for me, I will look out for you in the sense that like we're trying to achieve a goal, and if you're going to help us achieve that goal, I'm going to make sure it's worth your time.
Yeah.
And I'm also going to make sure that I understand what your personal goals are. So I know when you're going to want to leave,
Mm-hmm.
if you need to leave to go do that thing that you're like passionate about or that thing that you want to do, and I'll support you in that. But while you're here, I would ask that like, you do everything you possibly can to help support my goals and the company's goals so that then I can in the future help you or on a daily basis pay you enough so that you can like work toward whatever it is you're working toward in your life.
Wow.
Um,
Wow.
it's like not necessarily transactional because again, like a sports team, like sports teams are passionate. Sports
Yep.
teams like they get things done. It's a teamwork environment. But I have friends that have played in the NFL, and it's like at the end of the day, we are kind of mercenaries. And
Mm-hmm.
I'm like,
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
yeah, like,
Yeah.
dude, like one of my friends played for the Titans for 5 years, and he was like, I mean, I think the fans are great. He's like, but they care about this like team a lot more than I do.
Yeah.
He was like, I
Yeah.
care about like going out there doing my part, making sure we win games.
Yeah.
Um, but I'm getting paid
Yeah.
like to win games.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. Wow.
Um, and yeah, so I resonated with that. He told me that probably like 3 or 4 years ago, and it stuck with me. And I was like, okay, like that makes a lot more sense for like
Yeah.
every organization. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, we're not necessarily like a family. Like, I'm not gonna like continue giving you mental health days to the end of time. I
Yeah. Yeah.
I need you to like show up and work into your job, and then I will make sure I do everything I possibly can to make sure you're taken care of.
Well, I love the way Jimmy, I love the way you process and think through that. And I love your analogy of it's not necessarily family, because sometimes you can put a label that doesn't fit all the time, but a team, a sports team, there's always moving parts in that. I mean,
Yeah,
that is brilliant there
yeah. I mean,
to do
like the
that.
owners are firing the GM's firing the coach.
Yeah,
Like
yeah, yeah.
the whole thing is always moving.
All things are possible in a team, right? So,
Yeah,
so when you think about you said the word as you were sharing that you have 30 employees roughly, and you're not as big or as large as you know you can be. What's growth look like for you all if you press the gas? What's growth look like for you all?
So this is going to be, in theory, a really big year for us. For the last like 2-ish years, from February of 2022 to February of 2024, we've been kind of working on selling into grocery. We started selling into the first grocery stores we ever sold into in February of
Hmm.
2022. Um, and then across the next 2 years, we just really struggled getting distribution, which I think a lot of new
Yep.
CPG brands struggle with. So as of this month, we are active nationwide in the largest natural food distributor in the country.
Wow.
Um, we're also active with like KE, so KE and Unify. Um, we have a couple other like local independent distributors that sell our product in like the Southeast, that are great to work with. So now that we have the distribution network kind of built out very recently,
Hmm.
um, it's time to go sell into more stores. And
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
this year has the potential to be like a really, really great year for us if we can move the needle on that, and get on the shelf. I think like, April into like August will be like the time where we're really launching into a bunch of new grocery stores, which is exciting.
Wow.
Um,
That's
we also are for the first time considering taking on like a pretty big equity investment. So Megan and I still, to this day, we own 95% of the company.
hmm
Um, this would, lower that percentage a lot, but it would also give us the resources that we need to be able to really scale.
Yeah.
Because for the last 7 years, what we've really struggled with is how do you go from like 1 million to 10 million?
hmm
And we had a really easy time getting to 1 million.
Yeah.
Very, like, I think I could go do it again with any business over and over again, but
Yeah.
like to go from 1 to 10, I've never done it
Yeah.
and consistently failed. Which, not to say that's a bad thing. We failed on purpose. I like did the scoop shops, it didn't work. We did franchising, it didn't work. We did direct to consumer online, it didn't work. We never piled into something so large that like we bet the farm and like the business went under. We always left room to like pivot and like, go back, try again. Um, I think we're finally like at the 2 year mark of doing the grocery thing. I'm like, okay, this year will be the year we find out. Can we get to $10 million in sales? And I think we can.
Yeah.
Yeah, like kind of what you alluded to. That requires hiring a lot more people.
Yeah. It does.
It requires really like having your ducks in a row financially, like understanding like the costs you're going to incur to grow. Like I kind of talked about in the beginning of the podcast, people don't understand that cost. They
Yep.
just don't understand the balance sheet of their business. And when you do what we do, that's like highly important. When you have a business that's burning money on marketing and inflating its balance
hmm
sheet, you're getting hit twice as hard.
Yeah.
We aren't doing that, but I know there's a lot of CPG brands that are.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, I mean, we just being really, really prepared to be
That's awesome.
operationally diligent
That's
is
awesome.
kind of where I'm at.
I mean, I'm telling you what, Jimmy, that sounds exciting. So if I take you back to 7 years ago, you're watching those uh, customers buy that cookie dough. If you were to, final question, if you were to give advice to that entrepreneur or that dreamer that's sitting there with that napkin in front of them or that pencil and pad, or they've got this brilliant idea, what do you say to that desirous individual to go, to get up, to move, to take action? What advice would you give to them?
Yeah, I feel like I didn't have a lot of like hardship necessarily taking action, and I think a lot of other people won't necessarily like once they have the idea, if they are the type of person that will take action. I mean, I would encourage them if they're not taking action, like, dude, just go do it because you will find out very quickly if it's going to work or not. That alludes to what the advice I would give. So the thing that I didn't do and the thing I wish I would have done and the advice that I consistently give to other entrepreneurs, make more bets, make them smaller. So like I was very committed. I didn't play business like I was playing poker, which I should have.
Hmm.
Um, when you have a product like ours, like the cookie dough, clearly when I saw those people buying it at the farmers market, people like it. We've sold our cookie dough to over 1 million people. People like our cookie dough. How to sell the cookie dough to the customer in the most efficient manner that scales? Never figured it out. I think I'm figuring it out right now,
Yeah.
right? 7 years later. The only way to figure that out is to make the bets faster, make them smaller, and see, like really experiment like with what works. So you could sell our cookie dough as an ingredient. You can sell it in the scoop shop, right? You could franchise the scoop shop. You can sell it in the grocery store. You could sell it in the gas station. You can sell it many different places. Your goal as the entrepreneur is to figure out what channel is the niche that you sell that product in.
Mm,
That can be taken over to like SaaS businesses with tech. That can be taken all the way over to construction businesses. Like if you're doing remodeling, like who is your target customer? What are you
hmm.
actually good at? What's the thing that you're doing that allows you to do what you do? And then all the way over on the SaaS side, it's like you build a tech solution that seems cool. um, Slack was not Slack when it started. Like they're
Okay.
one of the best examples of this. Like
Hmm.
Slack was, I think, a video game company.
Yeah.
Like they built Slack internally, and then they were like, "Oh wait, this should be the product." And then it's like, "Well, you've built this really cool product that you're using, but you don't even know who the market for it really is."
Hmm.
And now I'm sitting here as like a CPG company that manufactures stuff, and I use Slack for everything. I use Slack for like communicating with our employees at the scoop shops. We post like policies and procedures on Slack. We use it as a channel to communicate with people. But it's like they didn't know that when they built it.
Yeah.
They had to find out who was going to buy Slack. Um, that's what your goal should be as an entrepreneur. You should be making many small bets because you'll
Wow.
come up with a product, you'll figure it out. Once you are past that barrier, you're going to be desperate to scale and you're probably going to have an idea in your head, a theory of what you think
Hmm.
will work. You should probably assume it's going to be wrong.
Wow.
Like,
Wow.
rarely is it right,
Yeah.
right? Like, you're
Yeah.
not going
Yeah.
to just know who your target customer
Yeah.
is today unless you're really lucky. And
Yeah.
so in that frame, if you make many bets and you make them small, you will never bet the farm. You'll never like put yourself in the hole. As we scale, or not as we scaled, but as we pivoted along the way, the biggest bet I ever made was on the scoop shops, which was our first bet.
Hmm.
And that cost me probably 500 grand in debt that I am still paying off.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's like
Yeah.
SBA loan doesn't go away. Whereas, like, had I just opened a couple stores and waited and seen what happened, if I had done something similar to what we did with franchising, where like we sold 3 franchises and then like kind of we're like, is this working? Is it not working? Um, and some of those things take time. Similar to like even grocery, it's like you're gonna get distribution, sell into it, figure out if it works. But as long as you can do things that aren't like too big of a bet when you don't have the resources, even if you do have the resources, it's not smart to just go out and like take a chance on something in a big way. Maybe
Yeah.
take it in a smaller way first.
That is great insight, great wisdom, and thank you so much, Jimmy, for sharing. To the audience, thank you for listening. I'm with Jimmy Freeman, the co-founder of NoBaked out of Nashville, Tennessee. They're doing awesome work. Look forward to reading, hearing about you and your wife and what you all are doing, because you certainly have a great foundation. So thank you so much for joining us. To our audience, we hope you come back and listen to us a future podcast. Thanks so much for joining us today.